Everything I've Learned and More by Silveryink. Read by My Lost and Found. Summary. Toph loves sitting in on Zuko's diplomatic meetings. They're usually at least a little interesting, and he's absent-minded just enough to let slip a detail that sends the Earth Kingdom ambassadors reeling with alarm and confusion. Whenever there's some little detail to be recalled from the last year, Zuko has it covered. This fic is about 3,400 words and one chapter. It is rated general audiences, and no archive warnings apply. This podfic was recorded for Voiceteam 2026 for the challenge SUN SALUTATION. As always, link to the fic is in the description, and on with the story. The meeting starts out fine, as most do. Zuko feels pretty confident about the way it proceeds, and knows that it has to do with the way the Southern delegation is smoothing over any hiccups that he's not sure how to deal with. Well, that, and the fact that Uncle decided to postpone his return to Ba Sing Se after Zuko all but broke down in his arms a few nights ago. He doesn't want to keep his uncle from the beloved tea shop he deserves to own, but the man was adamant in his choice to stay behind, saying that he needed some help, and it might have been a little stupid to let a teenager with next to no command experience rule an entire nation without prior preparation for it. Well, he'd said it in kinder words, and Zuko doesn't mean to be self-deprecating in any way, but it's the truth. He has no experience, despite all his lessons and essentially mastering the theory required to rule. But then, all of that had to do with waging war, and Zuko wants to steer right in the opposite direction of that nonsense. It's hard, but rewarding in its own way, if a little thankless in person. We'd need some financial assistance to strengthen our border defenses, Bato of the Southern Water Tribe says. Zuko isn't sure what the man's title is, but his importance is clear enough to anyone in shouting range, which for him is a lot if he sets his mind to it. I'm afraid they rather dwindled, even in the years preceding our involvement in the war. Zuko nods slightly. I think I remember, he says. There was only a watchtower when I reached your village. There's a slight pause, because while the South had been used to the Fire Nation raids, they probably hadn't expected a prince to invade the place. Oops. Fortunately, Chief Hakoda knows the story well, and wrangled him into visiting, and subsequently apologizing to, the village once things calmed slightly. Zuko was planning on doing that anyway. He's got manners. He's already drafting a written apology to be sent through Katara when she leaves for her home next week, as a placeholder for when he can do it in person. He hopes it's enough. Sokka told me about that, he says. While we don't expect such grandiose constructions as the Northern Water Tribe, we'd rather not be taken by surprise by invading pirates. Zuko shudders. He hates the pirates and what they did to his ship. It wasn't much, but it had been his home for 3 years, as much as he'd hated it. He'd lost his notes on past Avatar's lives, and the first pair of Dao swords he'd forged for himself. He seconds the notion that the people must be protected from those pirates. The Northern Water Tribe also took extensive damage from the invasion last year, Chief Arnook says. Zuko vaguely remembers that he lost his daughter in that invasion. In the words, turned into the moon, and he still doesn't know how much of that actually happened. Then again, Zhao had been eaten by a giant glowing fish spirit, so he can accept that weirder things have happened to him, or at least around him. And we will pay for those damages, he assures the man.
Perhaps you could look into any security flaws in the meanwhile, such as the turtle seal tunnels under the walls. A dedicated swimmer could use them to get inside.
Beside him, Uncle stills and sets down his teacup. A second silence falls over the room, and Zuko looks around, bewildered. He's not entirely sure what he did to make them all go this quiet so fast. Even when he and the chiefs had been speaking, a light murmur had been audible throughout as advisors ran over the details of the agreements their leaders made. After a long and extremely uncomfortable pause, Uncle comes to his rescue.
I suppose we should move on to the next topic on our agenda.
He interjects in a blatant attempt to change the subject, and the rest of the group seems to agree. And yet, this is on the back of his mind until he's lying down in his chambers talking to Sokka and Suki.
Wait, hold on. I never understood how you got inside either. I just assumed you did it with the rest of the soldiers. What? No. I was presumed dead, if you recall.
Let me get this straight, Suki interrupts, punching Sokka in the shoulder lightly when he snickers. You were caught in an assassination attempt that exploded your whole ship, stowed away under an admiral you loathed for another day and a half without taking care of your injuries, and swam in freezing cold water right after that just to catch Aang. Zuko squirms under her glare.
I told you, I'm not exactly proud of the things I've done.
Sokka swears under his breath.
Buddy, she doesn't mean that. You've already made up for your mistakes, and you're cleaning up behind your ancestors, which you shouldn't have to do, by the way, and you're doing great. What Suki meant was that you were injured badly and still pushed through what could be a borderline painful environment without really stopping to take a moment for yourself.
Which is rather impressive to most, Suki concludes. And incredibly concerning. You're lucky you have us to help take care of yourself now.
Suki.
She fixes him with a look, and he relents.
Fine, but I don't get why. Oh.
I think you broke him, Sokka whispers to Suki theatrically. Suki shoves him off the bed, and he falls with a yelp. Zuko is caught between the heat rising in his cheeks and laughing at his friend's plight.
You brought this on yourself,
he finally decides on saying. Sokka swears at him in response and hauls himself back onto the lavish mattress. He flops deliberately over them both and goes limp, ignoring Zuko's squawk and Suki's jab in the side until they're all snickering in what is effectively a cuddle pile.
You didn't tell us the most important part, though. What did Paku's face look like when you told him you single-handedly found your way into one of the most secure and sacred places in the world?
Zuko laughs. Toph loves sitting in on Zuko's diplomatic meetings. They're usually at least a little interesting, and he's absent-minded just enough to let slip a detail that sends the Earth Kingdom ambassadors reeling with alarm and confusion.
We must work on strengthening Ba Sing Se's defenses if a 14-year-old girl could break through them so easily,
one of them says at an international summit. Toph stiffens. She hadn't heard about how Azula managed to get through the great city's walls, but Zuko has that information covered.
The 14-year-old girl is one of the Fire Nation's most prestigious benders in a long time, he replies coolly. Princess Azula had always been a master strategist, even during her early childhood. Her persuasion skills, as well, were to be admired. The plan only succeeded because she and her team assumed the identities of the Kyoshi warriors they already expected to receive that day. Well, he adds awkwardly, and the fact she convinced me to join her side.
Toph wants to smack her forehead, because seriously? Dude, stop digging yourself into a hole. But the ambassador's heartbeat skyrockets, and she has to hold back a grin instead. You were already inside?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my uncle and I had been living there for a couple of months by that point. We were supposed to celebrate the opening of his new tea shop,
he says wistfully, and Toph discreetly pats his forearm in comfort, and as a reminder that they're still in a room full of dignitaries, who were currently panicking upon learning that the Dragon of the West had actually managed to get past their walls at some point. Spirits. This was the best decision she'd made since joining Twinkletoes and the others.
That reminds me, Suki, did you ever receive the financial aid I sent to compensate for the structural damages to your village?
Yeah, she replies from her position as his guard. You didn't really damage much of the island. It was mostly just the rooftops of some houses and parts of the town square. Maybe even a few roadside stalls at most. They're surprised that they even receive the compensation, but they won't feed you to the unagi if you decide to visit Kyoshi Island. Now, several hearts pick up the pace, and very nearly match the rate Zuko had achieved in the early Western Air Temple days. What's the unagi? She asks curiously.
I think it's a giant sea serpent. I wasn't really paying attention because we were trying to not get eaten at the time.
It's a giant sea serpent, all right, one of the other warriors says from across the room. It has a habit of eating just about anything near it. The elephant koi, people, small boats, and so on. It's mostly why Kyoshi Island was able to stay out of the war for so long. None of the fleets could get close enough to attack us. Toph grins. Cool. Zuko chuckles beside her, and she punches him in the shoulder good-naturedly. He pokes her in the side for that, and turns back to the ambassadors, who appear to be close to fainting at this point. She considers mentioning their state to Sparky, but decides that she wants to witness the rest of this just to see the outcome.
Right. We were going to talk about the villages where soldiers are still stationed.
The rest of the conversation is dull, mostly, and Toph mostly zones out until Zuko yet again mentions something from one of his travels pre-joining the gang.
Be that as it may, the Fire Nation's army isn't the only one terrorizing your people,
he says icily.
Our soldiers remain in those villages as security forces,
someone pipes up indignantly.
The Fire Nation imposed several strict laws and curfews, and now I am well aware of what the Fire Nation has done, Zuko interrupts. I believe that it is on me to make up for those actions in any way I can. This is a major problem I witnessed firsthand when I traveled to the Earth Kingdom. Your soldiers aren't protecting your people. They're just plain bullies abusing their power over those who can't stand up for themselves.
Toph blinks a few times. Not that it clears her vision or anything. No wonder he was so invested in this subject, even if it had nothing to do with him or the Fire Nation. Zuko had driven himself to the point of having a complete meltdown several times as he fought the old generals to remove the soldiers from various outposts and reassign them to different jobs based on their experience in the field. It had all accumulated in an actual breakdown, and since then, Uncle has taken up the position of his advisor until Zuko turns 18, at least. Though it's closer to regent, with the way he's watching over his nephew anyway. None of them really want to bring it up, and Zuko appreciates having someone to help him, so he isn't complaining either.
But I met a young boy who had been taken from his mother because he stood up to a few soldiers laying about their village, he recalls. They said that because he fought back, he could join the army. He wasn't even 10 years old, Ambassador. Should I have let him be? Would you? No, Then I trust this matter will be taken care of with the urgency it deserves,
Zuko concludes, leaving no room for argument.
Right. I suppose it's late enough to conclude today's proceedings, then. I'll be taking your leave,
he adds, bowing respectfully to them. Hold up, Sparky, Toph calls, hopping down from the dais next to him. He barely jumps at the sudden action and silently walks down the length of the council room at a deliberately measured pace. The Earth Kingdom delegation sits dumbstruck behind them, though Toph can't be too sure why. Zuko has dropped so many bombshells today that it could be literally any of them. The door shuts softly behind them, and Toph can sense his heartbeat properly now that she's not on carpeted floors. The dais was metal, but the large carpet lining the middle muffled her senses a bit. It's slightly too fast, which she'd somehow missed during the meeting, and she tugs at his sleeve gently. Are you all right? He exhales.
Yeah, it's just... That's the old war room. The staff were clearing the regular council room, as you know, so I had to use it instead. I don't really have any good memories associated with those chambers.
She translates this to mean, my memories of the place are borderline traumatic, because Zuko has a habit of severely underestimating how bad a situation can be, and tugs at his sleeve again. He stays silent for a little longer as they walk, but when his pace slows, she slows with him.
Toph.
Yeah?
Would you like to redecorate those chambers at some point?
Her grin, she'll be told later, is absolutely feral, and even more delighted for it. Sparky, she breathes, you don't even need to ask. Some 5 months into Fire Lord Zuko's reign, when the immediacy of ending a war and trying to make up for the Fire Nation's past mistakes is slowly fading into something more stable, Surya realizes exactly what he stepped into when he decided to become the official advisor to his monarch. At that point, he looks up at the sun and prays to his namesake that he doesn't go crazy before he turns 40, which, unfortunately, is within the next decade. It doesn't help that the Fire Lord is a teenager. Surya feels practically ancient next to him, especially when he has to hunt him down for a meeting that he's forgotten in favor of feeding the turtle ducks, petting one of the few cats that still roams the palace, or generally being harassed by his friends. He hates having to drag away the boy from something so peaceful and innocent into the pincers of mind-numbing politics, but it must be done anyway. Things are never dull around him, though. That much is clear.
The subject of this meeting is to discuss the decommissioning of several of our prisons, most of which were created to hold war prisoners, including the Boiling Rock. If the prison cannot be decommissioned, the objective is to change the policies.
Fire Lord Zuko, you cannot decommission all the prisons. General somebody interrupts. Surya has never been great with faces, but this person seems to be new to the council. Oh, right. Some of the council members had been replaced after one too many attempts on the Fire Lord's life had been traced back to them. Spirits. These grown men were really trying to kill a kid, ruler of the nation he may be. The teenager raises a brow.
Why not? Certainly the funding for those prisons could go elsewhere if we cut down their numbers. We could invest in plans to reduce domestic crime instead of waste so many resources pointlessly.
The prisons will keep the people in line, the general says, and Surya winces. Oh, that is a bad argument to take in, well, in general, but especially with this Fire Lord. The torchlight flares slightly, and Surya can hear his employer breathe slowly, deliberately, before responding.
General Kiran,
He grits out.
I have long since established that the Fire Nation will no longer let her people live in fear. I hope I needn't say more on the subject. My standing must be obvious by now.
There won't be any other way to keep crime off the streets, the councilman protests.
Needless cruelty won't solve anything.
Oh, Fire Lord, it's just a few years behind bars. That's hardly unjustified.
Oh, no. Not unjustified, The same way this was justified.
Surya doesn't dare look at the young monarch, but he's pretty sure he just gestured to his scar. The story of how he got it is more or less common knowledge, but the reasons for such a punishment had been more shadowed than the way he received it.
Fire Lord, No. Do go on about justified punishments.
He all but snarls, and Surya shivers slightly at the tone.
The Boiling Rock may be the most secure prison in the world, my escape from it exempted.
What?
But I've seen the way prisoners are treated there. I've heard first-hand accounts of how they were treated in other prisons too. Accounts, I may add, which are both from our citizens and prisoners of war. Do you know what they're actually like, those prisons you defend? The guards would invent rules and punish those infractions just for some sick power trip. They'd bring out fire lashes for things like not looking at the guards they pass, or making the line a little too crooked for their whimsical liking. And if you're a firebender, you get thrown into a cooler. No questions asked.
A cooler, sir? Surya asks softly, mildly horrified. He's sure that isn't even the worst of it, and he absolutely hates the look of furious devastation on the Fire Lord's face. He'll call the little earthbender and the boy's uncle to help later. But he can't quell his curiosity. The glint in the Fire Lord's eyes softens slightly when he shifts his gaze to his advisor, and though he rationally knows that his ruler isn't angry at him, it's a little gratifying to see the proof before him.
It's a small metal cell of sorts,
he explains.
Heavily insulated and constructed specifically to trap the chill. It practically leaches the heat from any source inside it. It's torture for most firebenders.
He asks.
You would know the effects of elemental deprivation.
He nods.
This isn't so much prolonged as intense and fast. The shock hurts more than the actual cold, like diving headfirst into icy waters without preparing for the chill first. It can be deadly to firebenders who haven't learned to regulate their temperature yet, or incredibly painful to those who have.
Surya swallows.
Oh, it's inhumane.
Lord Zuko agrees.
Which is why I'd rather it didn't exist.
We'd need to make sure the strongest benders inside for actual crimes don't try to escape. General Kiran tries weakly. Even he looks a little pasty, to Surya's satisfaction. He'll be watching the man now, and he'll alert the guards to do the same.
So chi block them,
Fire Lord Zuko says with a shrug.
We'll figure out the details in the meeting, as I'd planned to do.
Well, that's news to him. The Water Tribe boy. The master strategist, part of him cries, because he couldn't be older than 16. Must have helped keep him from leaping right into this idea without thinking ahead. There are a lot of parts of Lord Zuko's story that concern him, such as the bit about swimming in icy water and the amount of detail that he went into describing the coolers. And he files that information for later to mull over, and let the boy's actual guardians and family to help him with. Right now, he sits back and dips his brush into the pot of ink beside him. It's going to be a long term of employment, and the Fire Lord can be terrifying when he wants to be. But Surya thinks he can work with someone who wants the best for his people. And it's certainly very interesting to see such antics as the Avatar practically barreling into the Fire Lord at full speed, before being chased around by said monarch until they're nearly late to the next meeting. He meets Ming's eyes and returns her grin, knowing that they're thinking the same thing. This is what they get for appointing children to fix the problems caused by adults who should have known better. And watching the Fire Lord tackle the 12-year-old monk to the floor, their laughter echoing through the corridors. For the first time in nearly a decade, he'd be told later. He can't help but think that the world is in the right hands. And that is all for this podfic. This is such a fun. I am a big, just huge fan of any fics where it's like outsider POV kind of characters are just like casually talking about the stuff they did. It's like, yeah, normal Tuesday. I swam through the seal, whatever animal it also is, holes, and I popped out. It was chill, yeah. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Are you okay? Why have you done this? What the fuck? And they're just sitting there like, didn't realize this was a weird thing. Whoopsie, I guess. I freaking love fics like that. And this is just, it's so great. It's got that, plus a bit of it's post-canon, so it's like, wondering what could have happened is a very fun thing. And this is a nice little world building. Probably Zuko was in a lot of meetings with ambassadors, and I love the idea of Toph just being there with him. I remember I read a fic, I think it might have been similar to this one, where Toph regularly joins Zuko because she can tell when people are lying, and people don't generally know that fact about her, so they're like, how does Zuko always know? Because she's just indicating to him, and that was very fun. And this reminds me of that, and it's got this, Zuko's done crazy shit. That's an insane little creature. He doesn't know how to give up. He doesn't know that it's an option, and I love that for him. It makes him so entertaining. But no, yeah, this very fun fic. And I think this is the first podfic that's going to be coming out for something I've done for Voiceteam 2026. So I'll explain a little bit more about that and the challenge this podfic was done for. So Voiceteam is like a podfic event where a bunch of podfickers get together and we're sorted into teams, and there's 3 rounds, and there's 10 challenges each round, and you make podfics and other fan works related to the challenge and submit them for points. What do you get for points? Nothing. They're all it's just fake internet points, but I want the points. I don't want to win. It gets so intense. My gosh, tiebreaker is crazy and I'm scared of it. But anyway, I do want them sweet points. So, this podfic is recorded for the challenge SUN SALUTATION, which is create a new pre-recording routine with at least 2 elements you don't usually do. And what I've done is I did some stretches beforehand, get the posture good. I filled up my water bottle and brought it with me. I'm 2/3 of the way done with that, so that's good hydration. I actually remembered to close my door and I have a little thing that you put at the bottom of doors to kind of muffle the sound a bit. I close my curtain, so that's also nice extra fabric to absorb sound. And the other thing I did was actually make sure to add the podfic I'm doing to one of my spreadsheets that I do that tracks everything I've done And like I'm supposed to do that beforehand, but I basically never do. I'm supposed to do it because it also gets me to go check the permission statement for whatever podfic I'm recording, so I make sure that there's nothing I've forgotten, and I like make sure to update any notes if the author's like blanket permission as long as you comment with a like link to the work or whatever. I make sure I get everything, and it's best to do that before I record the podfic, but I generally forget. But this is the routine that if I'm doing any podfics for this challenge, I gotta do it beforehand, which is good. Stretching is also good. My back is hard as rock, but not in a good way. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, Voiceteam 2026. I'm very excited about that. I am on the team, let me get the name, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. All the team names I think are based on, you know, kids books, which is very fun. So yeah, I am on that team, and I'm very excited to be working with my fellow team members and the rest of the Voiceteam community for this event. So yeah, you'll be seeing podfics scattered for like quite a while that are just like, hey, by the way, this is recorded for Voiceteam. Sometimes I forget about some of the podfics I've recorded, and like I find them in my files like months later, like shoot, I forgot to release this. I'm hoping to get better with that, but like literally I think on my schedule for what's coming out, like last week or the week before that was one from Mystery Box, which was the it's like the December, January, I can't remember exactly when, event that happens, like the winter break kind of period. I forgot about that. I think actually there's another one that's coming out in like a couple of weeks that I also forgot about, but you know, I gotta put it in my schedule nicely. But anyway, so that's to say, for unknown amount of time after this, occasionally you will hear me say something's for Voiceteam, and if you didn't know before, that's what Voiceteam is. But yeah, I'm done with my ramblings. I've rambled quite a bit, and it's totally not just to get the extra sweet time length bonus, mostly because I did forget that was a thing, and it's like 10 minutes, not 20, something else. I can't remember. I don't think though that it's 30 minutes. And even then, that would be a lot of extra rambling to intentionally do. But I'm just very excited about Voiceteam, if you couldn't tell. So yeah, that is all for this podfic. If you enjoyed the fic, go into the description, leave a kudos, leave a comment, whatever you can for the original fic. I am sure the author appreciates it. Anyway, that is all for this time. I will see you guys next time.